Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Joey.
Hey there.
Joey wanted to talk about remakes and stuff today. So
Yeah,
that
no,
is our subject.
I wanted to get Jesse's opinion on the remakes scope or escape these days, because I have made my opinion known on them. I think that they've raised a lot of the bars for what they were to what they are. But I'm curious what Jesse
So
thinks.
here's my opinion. Personally, I played Dead Rising, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really particularly need to play Dead Rising again. It'd probably be nice, but, it's probably not high on my list of games I'd rather spend my money on because I've already played Dead Rising.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe a lot of people should play Dead Rising, and a remake brings the boys to the yard, if you will. It
For
allows
sure.
people to play a game that, let's face it, isn't really on any systems right now. I think there's the crappy versions on Steam, but
Well, Dead Rising was remastered. Like, this would technically be considered almost a in between remake remaster, because they actually did release.
oh yeah, but that was on like the PS3 and Xbox, so
True,
it's
true,
like
true. It doesn't
those
really count.
versions aren't here yet, so now we're bringing it again. We're
Right.
doing it
That's
again.
true.
Isn't it fun that a game is so old that you could have remastered it twice and it's still valid?
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, time moves a lot faster
I know.
for game development. I've found, it's honestly been less than 20 years since Dead Rising came out. And if you think about that, in 2009, Dreamcast games Metal Gear was created. Metal Gear is the same relative to Dead Rising if we look to Dead Rising now.
Well,
That's kind of an insane comparison.
for me, it's usually like 7 years because that's how long it takes to go from middle school through high school. Well, 8 years.
Right.
Um, and that's usually what I would consider a good cycle. As long as you can get one generation of gamers through their middle school all the way to adulthood, that's usually a good sign that that generation of gamers is an adult. They'll buy whatever fucking games they want. Now we cater to the next generation.
Like,
And does the next generation have the game? If the answer is yes, then you don't need to worry about it. If the answer is no, remake that shit.
here's a question. When do we dictate the relative change in expectations of how old you would be to be have games made for you, right? How when would that change have occurred? Do you believe?
So, again, I mentioned the 8 years. If you think about it like this, right? Say you're a kid, right? And you're having little
Right.
baby kid games made for you.
Mm-hmm.
That would usually be through elementary school and maybe into middle school for a bit, right? Once you
Mm-hmm.
hit high school, you're no longer getting the baby kid games made for you. And obviously, you can still
Right.
enjoy them. I enjoy my Pokemon and stuff, but it's not for me at that point. Now, let's say you're getting into more mature games, right? Or more teenager-esque games, right?
Right.
Well, that's usually middle school to high school. About 8 years.
Right.
7 or 8 years. So that's why I say a good 8 year cycle is pretty good for this, to consider it. And once you're an adult, you're playing whatever game you feel like at that point, no matter what. Like,
Mm.
adults got their own thing going.
I definitely feel like there was some societal norms at one point in history that kind of pushed a narrative of what you have to play for a
Oh, of
while.
course. I mean,
And
this kind of
obviously the
goes
Call of
back
Duty
to
scene.
this kind of goes back to movies a little bit, where it's like everybody, you when you get the ability to watch PG-13 movies, you want to watch the PG-13 movies. You don't want to watch those little baby movies anymore.
I was
But like, obviously, you kind of
more looking at I was more looking at the concept of you are a man, let's say in the 80s, and you're kind of expected to watch action movies, even if they're not your cup of tea.
Well, I mean
The societal norm against
that's just general trends. Um, a lot of people the idea of fashion extends to more than just clothes. Is it fashionable to like
exactly.
this certain thing? Right now, it's fashionable to like Dark Souls games. It's never
Well,
been fashionable to like
I,
strategy games, aside from a
I think
brief
it's
second when StarCraft 2 came out.
I think it's more of a relative question now than though actually because like there's a lot more variety in what is expected to be enjoyed than what would have been, let's say, even 5 years ago for gaming, like in 2019. Um,
So I think right now with the VTubers and the Twitch, I think it's whichever stream friendly is usually what's popular right now. Whatever is a good streaming game,
I
and
mean,
you
I can
can
agree with
see
that while
this.
also thinking the other thing because like stream friendly is like these exist in their own little microcosm. I think the big thing though is mine is meant to be overarching, if that makes sense. Instead of focused, which is stream friendly is a more focused concept.
Well,
Not
I
everybody
hold
likes
on.
to
Let
play
me
stream friendly.
put it like this. I've noticed. All right.
Hmm.
I think this is the big difference between when we were younger versus what it is right now. Unpopular does not mean unliked. I
I mean
think
that is true.
nowadays, if you're playing a game that nobody's heard of, people will be. You tell people about that, they'll be like, "Oh, that's neato." Whereas previously, they'd be like, "Oh God, you're not playing Call of Duty, you dumbass." So it's
I
like
mean, yeah.
there's no
I mean,
longer like gatekeeping in that matter, which I think is great. That's just
I
great.
I think a big piece of it that like that's part of it, partially my point even.
Oh, you
But
like Harvest Moon type games? Good for you. They're good for you,
yeah.
buddy.
Well, let's be real. That started a long time ago. To be fair, like that was kind of like one of the outliers where everyone was like, "Yeah, no, I played Harvest
Oh yeah.
Moon." Everybody played Friends of Time.
I
It was easy, accessible, and very comfortable.
I think that was
One of the
the
most
kind of
favorite
the
games.
start of the acceptance, though. I think that was when it started, and then at
I agree.
that idea slowly spread over to all the other genres,
It definitely did, and it did help
like
that
an
the game that
infection. No.
well, it did help that the five following Harvest Moon games were so accessible to people. Specifically, obviously, A Wonderful Life, and Magical Melody were very good. Animal Parade is also one I enjoyed, but like specifically A Wonderful Life and Magical Melody after Friends of Mineral Town. That's
Well,
just acceptability in accessibility.
I think another thing is you gotta also remember when we were younger, gaming was niche as fuck. It was a
True.
popular in general, and you know how nerds get. They get defensive over their shit when the popular crowd starts to get into it.
I mean, like we were
Oh,
talking about like the
you like
importing.
Harvest Moon? Play a real game. That kind of idea.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's
we,
like,
we were talking about this before, like the lack of import for video game anime media specifically until a certain point. It was because there was a relative lack of interest in a lot of the things that Japan was producing,
oh yeah.
like Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon on the SNES made no numbers. Made no numbers, even though it's a great game. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great game. But it didn't make numbers because people in the 90s didn't give a shit.
It just
Didn't care.
didn't really seem like something anyone would. Well, there's also the idea of like, look at this new thing. It's very different from what everyone else is. People get a little like, I'm
Right.
not gonna try this until I hear more people like it. But like, so few people are actually playing it, and the word's not really getting out that it's good. That's like, it
Well,
never
let's
really
just talk perspective.
crosses people's
Is
stuff because you gotta
right.
understand, we're like us particularly, we're constantly paying attention to the new video game news. We're constantly like looking at like stuff. We know pretty much every video game that's coming out that will ever come out when it
Yep.
comes out.
And it's very
Most
dense nowadays.
people,
Yep.
most people do not know every video game that comes out ever, and that's a weird
And
thing.
to be
Even now, even though it's more popular now, it's not really the
right.
case that everybody knows everything.
Oh, because there was, I mean, it's an interesting sociological like view to look at it as kind of a when we didn't get them all, we wanted to know them all. and like that was the 90s. Is like people didn't get all the games, but like a lot of people knew the
Well, that's
games.
why the magazines were so popular.
Yep, yep,
Well, the
and that's a
Nintendo
big
Power
thing
and
with the
Game
magazine
Informer, oof, those are great
because
because you could
I
like
mean,
check out games that you've never seen before. But
and
even
you
then,
and you
that's
might
only like
not.
the
Yeah,
gamers who would get those. The regular
right.
people, never.
I mean, like, and that's where the acceptable difference comes
Well, and then
in.
it comes
Obviously,
into like if you're a regular person coming into trying to get into gaming back then, who would you
right.
ask? You would ask a gamer. Well, what's the gamer going to suggest? They're not going to suggest Harvest Moon, which is what you should be playing. They're
Yeah.
going to
And I
suggest
mean, E3
whatever
was
game they're
new, so
currently
like,
playing.
why would you? Yeah, no, E3 was new, so why would you look into that if it's new?
Yeah, so like they'll suggest whatever. There are two ways it goes. They either suggest whatever the gamer is currently playing, which is usually probably not a good game to start with, or they'll play multiplayer with the gamer, and the gamer's gonna stomp the shit out of them in whatever multiplayer game.
I have an alternative to offer for the point of accepting and learning to accept things in the game. Um, Most games that became accepted by the mass populace were on arcade machines.
That's true, and that's because it was in
Sword and
public and
Swords.
anyone could just walk up and play them.
Mm-hmm. And it was that was a large part of culture. Like if you ask anybody, they won't tell you, but they'll tell you about an NES, but they won't tell you about more than Mario. But if you ask them about arcade cabinets, they'll name litanies of games, and that's a
Well,
majority of the popular consensus from that era: Metal Slug, Tekken, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. These are obvious games that would not have taken off without these things, and they're part of the populace. They're part of the popular like consensus even back then when they made movies about these things.
so two things. The day of the arcade really did a lot of that was before the consoles really took off. So that the arcade situation was like the start of
Untrue.
it. I think a lot of the
That's
time it
that's
kind of.
that's, that's untrue, and I can explain why. Arcade cabinets were popular in the early to mid '90s with the populace. Like Street Fighter 2 didn't come out until the '90s. Mortal Kombat didn't come out until the '90s. These are not '80s things. Like if you're talking Space Harrier and like Outrun, yeah, I agree. But like Virtuon, no. Tekken, no. Virtual Fighter, no. Like these are things that were in the '90s when video games did take off because the PlayStation existed, and obviously they were starting to make movies in the '90s about video games. Some to malign success, coupled to goofy enjoyability, but like they were popular. They were.
But I
Uh,
do know that the arcades did help turn people into gamers. But do you want to know what I think really popularized video games into like everybody's brain?
what do you
Mobile games.
think?
Because
I
no,
want to hear
and
your argument.
here's my argument, right? I was trying to get grandma into playing some video games, right? My grandma into playing some video games just because why not? She has context for video games that she's played. She's played through Candy Crush. Mobile games
Right.
have given an option where like previously, even if you didn't like movies, you've seen a movie, right? You have context for what a movie is.
Right.
Nowadays, previously back when we were kids, people who didn't play video games had no context for what a video game is. But now with mobile gaming, even people who don't play video games have context for what a video game is because they
I
played
think
Candy Crush or something.
I think you're really close to the right answer with that. I think you're like a step away. I think that it does come down to a singular console, like you're thinking, which phone is at this point in my mind a console, almost. It comes down to what came before the popularized mobile games, which came out in the late 2000s, obviously. Um, and that comes in the form of the Wii.
The Wii also really helped a lot. That too.
The Wii was heavily family focused, easily accessible. You don't need to know buttons on
Actually,
them.
that does bring pop because I remember Grandma played the bowling game. So yeah, that does. You're right. Even
If
before
we're
she
talking,
played the Candy Crush, she
and
played the bowling.
though to be fair, we're not really making them gamers at that point. We're making it accessible to non-gamers. And
We're not
that's a
making them
different point.
gamers, but we are putting it into popular brains.
I
We're
mean, if that, I don't think that that's the same thing. I think that like saying it's part of the popular consensus is not the same as making it accessible
or
and making it.
sorry, maybe that's not the right way to put it. We're putting it into everybody's brain so that they have context and thus they can accept it easier.
I think that there was
It's priming
for
people in a way.
Right, right. I think that there was context earlier than that without them having to intake it. I think that there is a way to perceive something without having to partake in something.
For some
what
people
I mean?
that works, but it doesn't work for everybody. Some people need to
Right,
partake.
but that's we're not talking about literally everybody here. We're talking about like the popular consensus.
Oh, I mean, there's always other ways to do stuff.
Right.
I think the hands-on, like I said, if nobody's ever watched a movie, I don't think movies would be as popular. But like, because everybody has watched at least a movie.
I think it did broach an untouched point on it, but
I think it's what pushed it over the edge, is what it is.
Like, obviously, if we're talking about what made people understand a video game, it's Mario. Like, that's the easy answer for this, because Mario literally became Mickey Mouse. He literally, after a game.
Oh yeah, if you want to learn to play video games, just go play a Mario game.
Like, and that's 85.
A Mario game.
What I'm delving more into here is what made it accessible to people in their daily lives, and obviously the Wii is a big one. I still think arcade cabinets played the biggest part in popularizing it with a new generation, and by and large, that generation carried it with them. And it popularized games that would never have been popular otherwise. Otherwise, it would have just been the simple thing, like pretty one note. I feel like I think a lot of game devs were able to their betterment, spread their wings on arcade cabinets, because arcade cabinets at one point could do way more than any console ever could. And that was a big point of going to the arcades, is you're always going to get a better game at the arcade than you do at home. There's still a reason to go, you know. Obviously, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting Edition on the arcade plays way better than the console version.
That's console version was crap.
I mean, the Championship Edition is the best edition. You know, we all know how it is.
Oh but, yeah, and speaking of remakes, guess we got announced as a remake of the Nintendo Direct.
Which one now?
No, it's Street Fighter 2.
Oh. Is it?
Wait, it was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Oh my god, I got my fighting game 2s mixed up.
Oh, that's not a remake. It was a remaster, and they're just bringing over all the games. Which, about time. A lot of those actually are stuck on console.
Yeah.
Or sorry, arcade. It's like when they made Capcom Fighting Game Collection. Yeah. Just the fact that Red Earth, for folks, sorry, I'll give context here. For folks that don't know, Red Earth is a very obscure Capcom fighting game about like a Neolithic era warrior sect. Like, you can be a fucking dinosaur, right? And it's really well animated, like some really good like 16-bit art in this game. It's a solid fighting game, but it was locked on arcades. It was literally untouchable on anything but that and emulation. And the fact that it was brought back is a victory for video game like history, because it's an important. I think all Capcom arcade games, just like all the major arcade game developers at the time, are important parts of history in video games. We can obviously agree on that. The big thing with arcade cabinets and Konami and Sega and Capcom and SNK is they mattered a hell of a lot during the arcade system era. But I'm diverging. Yeah, no, I saw that. I was super excited for that. Remember, we watched it together.
I know. I saw the internet blowing up over that announcement. Even though it was treated like a small announcement by the Nintendo Direct, a lot of people were talking about it.
People don't like. People who develop games, weirdly enough, don't realize how much people love Marvel vs. Capcom as a series. In fact, let's go even further. They don't realize how much we love the Capcom fighting game crossovers. Because Tatsunoko versus Capcom is still one of my favorite fighting games of all time.
This is gonna be
But
a
then you
weird
have
thing
like
to say, but I feel like fighting games are like very like hard to get into. But like
you're correct.
I feel like the people who were excited for Marvel vs. Capcom were the fighting game community and nobody else. Nobody else.
I disagree for one reason. Marvel vs. Capcom is one of those direct important arcade series games. It's one of those games that you would always play with your friends. You'd go to the arcade, you'd chill out. It's a certain sect of people, sure, but there's also Marvel fans that are into this.
I
There's
think
also
people have
who
always
play.
had that like in the back of their brains for every fighting game, to the point where I feel like that feeling's got kind of diluted when it comes to fighting games.
Which one specifically?
The feeling of it was an arcade game and thus important.
I mean,
When it comes to fighting games
no,
specifically, I feel
because
like that feeling's a
still
little
in.
diluted.
I think a big thing to note here is if it's a good arcade game, it will stand on its own. And that one is one of those. But like even away from that, it's Capcom during their not Crapcom era, so people give a shit. And also it looks fast, people give a shit. And also it's Marvel. In today's day and age, people give a shit.
I don't know. You think people would be this excited for if Gauntlet came out all of a sudden? The old arcade Gauntlet?
That's not the same thing, and you know it. I gave examples.
A lot of people love that arcade Gauntlet, my guy.
I agree.
I'd say it's one of the
what
more
are the
important arcade
examples?
machines.
I agree. But what are the. Relatively, Marvel vs. Capcom kept Marvel alive during some of their good time. So, no, I disagree.
That's from a financial specific, not from a cultural specific.
Right. That's culturally relevant. That is a culturally relevant. Keeping Marvel alive is a legitimate culturally relevant point to make. Especially since Marvel has 5 out of 10 of the top grossing movies.
I don't know how many people actually know that bit, though. Like, I feel like that's one of those trivia things that's like, hey, did you know? I don't think that's, like, super into the zeitgeist and thus culturally relevant. I think that's financially relevant.
I mean, if we're talking about relevancy and, like, what they would know, if they know Gauntlet's importance, they at least would know Marvel almost died. Like one of them is a lot easier to figure out than the other. Yeah. Is all I'm saying. Obviously, they're not going to forget the fact that the Hulk had fucking 2 movies in the span of 5 years. But I digress. There's also the fact of the matter that Marvel vs. Capcom has always been in the popular consensus. Fans have always loved it. Not just fighting game fans, it's a good game.
Oh yeah, it's a great game. I like it. I'm not even a fighting game guy.
Like, I will concede to you that the earlier games they made for the series, yes, I can agree. Like Children of the Atom, that one's niche. Marvel Superheroes, that one was lesser known. I agree.
Well, I think another thing that always... I always remember this whenever the Marvel vs. Capcom arcade cabinet was out. Just the fact that it's Marvel and Capcom, like a massive crossover, and that's like big in front of everyone to see. Yeah. That alone, like, just draws eyes. I mean, in a way that nothing else can.
Well, a big thing to keep in mind, as I was saying, the Capcom crossovers. The one that actually didn't catch many eyes is probably one of the biggest ones, arguably. Tatsunoko versus Capcom. Tatsunoko is an animation company that's been around since the 1950s. They have made some of the most famous characters in anime history, and nobody batted an eye, which justifiably so. Not many people know about those old animes specifically. They know about certain ones, just not those ones. You know, Passion Sins is one of the greats, but they don't know about it. I'm not going to piss and moan. I recognize that it's one of those things that, while it's a great fighting game, it's just not in the popular culture consensus. But at the same time, I recognize that Marvel vs. Capcom definitely would catch eyes. Even when Marvel was dying, it caught eyes. Keep in mind, this is pretty fresh off of a couple of pretty big storylines in Marvel's history. At this point, they were dying because they were in the midst of building up to the Genosha extinction. I don't want to spoil anybody for X-Men '97. So please watch the show. I'm Jesse. Have you watched the show?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm not going to say what happens, but they were building up to a major story arc for the X-Men. That's why Children of the Atom was the first one. I think Marvel vs. Capcom is important. I think the first Marvel vs. Capcom and the second one are important, and the third one was a cultural moment. Kind of the same thing happened with that and Street Fighter 4, where everyone was like, "Oh shit, this is happening."
I don't know. I think with like comic books, that one's pretty insular too. Nobody's listening to this and being like, "Yeah, my grandma knows about this moment." You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
you say major cultural thing, but that's just major cultural within comic books.
I mean, I wouldn't say within comic books, but nerddom may be insular, but it's still relatively large community. And I think that, like,
but I feel like nerddom spreads within itself pretty easily. You know, when we're talking about this whole subject has been like, how did we bring this all into popular group? Comic books spreading into video games, I don't think is bringing this into popular brains. You know, I think that's just nerds like nerd shit. Sees other nerd shit and enjoys other nerd shit.
But like relative to what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
A big thing to note here is there are no real cultural moments outside of Sonic and Mario that we can talk about in video game history. There just aren't. Like maybe
I think that's why this is kind of a hard subject to breach, because there's not like any moments. It's more of a slow build up, a mountain that got climbed than a big moment.
I think that's what I'm getting at is like which mounds are biggest, you know, and this was a big mound.
Big mound, and you know, mobile and you know, the Wii era was a big mound that got climbed.
Yeah. I agree. I'm just saying which ones came earlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing I'm getting at. Like, no matter how bad it is, the Mario movie was a big important thing.
You know, and you know, Mario in general. You know, when he dropped, it's like everybody knew him. That's when video games like could have a proper icon. Video games aside from maybe Pac-Man, video games didn't have a proper icon.
You know what? Pac-Man and Pong, because Pong
wasn't really an icon. Pong was two paddles.
Pong as a game was not, mainly because it was the only game for a while. Before Pac-Man, there was Pong and the variations therein. Pong was that guy, so we gotta put respect on that.
We'll put respect on Pong, yeah.
Yeah. That is probably the first cultural moment delving in video games. That's the first arcade cabinet, first off. But also, first home consoles. Good point.
True. And you know, let's give Pitfall its place in the world.
I mean, Pitfall's older than Pong. Or no, it's young. Sorry.
That's Atari. That's an Atari system game.
It is. Atari was after Pong.
After Pac-Man.
Yeah, Atari. Oh, actually, Atari was before Pac-Man.
This console?
Yeah, Pac-Man came out on Atari later into Atari's life. Yes, Atari was before Pac-Man.
I could have sworn the Pac-Man console, Pac-Man arcades were long before any console came out.
Atari first started out making Pong consoles, specifically for Pong, and then they delved into the one you're thinking of, the Atari 2600. and partway into that thing's lifespan, Pac-Man was released, but that was later than when the Atari was released.
Huh.
And the Atari was released later than when Pong was released. These all fold into each other though, because this is all Atari.
Yeah.
Like, you're right, it's Atari. It's just the timing is just.
Namco was kind of the one taking over, the arcades cabinets at the time, whereas Atari had a lot of the home console stuff. And eventually, I think they merged. So eventually, they married. Finally, they fucked.
I mean, the big thing is Atari kind of. I think the quality bettered initially from it, and then.
Well, a lot of those Atari games, I'm gonna admit, they were kind of crap. They were really crap.
Well, back then they were good. Back then they were good. Let's
I don't know, like when you compare it to like Pac-Man, it's like oof. Well, you compare those Atari games to like.
Hold up, because Pac-Man was good because it was an arcade game, and we talked about this.
I know, but like
arcade
even just
and,
that's what I mean though. Like, yeah, of course the arcade games were more powerful. They were better.
Well, why were they better? Tell me why.
One, more powerful. They were out in the public.
Right. Why were they more powerful?
Big machine.
Okay, so it's bulky, so that's a downside. Okay. What can
when we're talking,
the big thing with home consoles are portable. That is a selling point.
Okay, hold on. Let me remake my point of what I mean. Atari crawled so that later consoles could walk. Because I'm not saying it wasn't important. I'm just saying, like, when I think back, like, everybody knows about Pac-Man and the consoles and, like, all of those Namco games. Not too many people know a lot of those Atari games. They're just kind of there. It's like, it's nice to know that they existed, and I think some people are like, "Wow, you could play these things at home. That's cool." But I don't think it was quite like.
Jesse, it was the leader in gaming until ET happened.
Oh yeah.
Like
then ET happened.
To be honest with you, like this is unfortunately a factor in almost the death of video games, sure, and they get a bad rap for it now, but like at one point, and even now today, people will unironically go and happily enjoy Missile Command because it's one of the best games ever made.
So here's the thing though, you say E.T., but like, it wasn't E.T. that did it by itself. The systems were failing before E.T. did it.
Well, I can actually explain that too. See, the reason why was not because of lack of interest in game ideas. The overcomplication of the controller systems that they would utilize. Obviously, anybody who's like our age has watched the Angry Video Kid. And he has actually done videos on all the dumb fuck controllers that exist.
Oh yeah.
But for anybody who doesn't know, there are a litany of useless controllers. And to be fair, it's not isolated to just them. Like, going all the way up, like, you can watch a Kid Icarus episode about how crazy Sony PlayStation controllers get. But
God, that PlayStation Wii remote really sucked.
It really bad. But the whole thing I'm getting at here is Atari was that big. They were. Otherwise, it would have just failed. The proof is in the pudding. Games existed past when Atari created their system. Because there was an interest and they did good money sale. Obviously, ColecoVision came in. You had the Commodore 64 came in. The Commodore, sorry.
Oh God, there was a lot of weird shit.
I mean, Bonk is fun, but like, yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, Commodore is probably the most normal one at the time.
The ColecoVision,
ColecoVision was weird.
It was weird, but it had good games. Like, this is what I mean.
Honestly, when I look at like all the different like systems and stuff, maybe it was kind of good that we kind of wiped the slate clean and started over. It was
Well,
getting a
but
little
I just
messy.
got done saying it didn't save it. Like, PlayStation overcomplicated things. The only reason they stayed successful is because Nintendo had a stranglehold at that point, still relatively, on a lot of other competitors' ability to do things. Sony succeeded at making what they made because they already were a financially successful company.
Oh yeah.
They didn't need to worry about making the next build like Sega did, because Sega at that point wasn't under the umbrella that they're under now. They're under a holdings company in Japan, one of the biggest ones in Japan, Sammy Holdings Company.
Well, I think one of the things that always interests me is that people love the Dreamcast. Dreamcast was a popular system. Sega still went bankrupt because the Saturn before it shat the bed so badly that there was no
Well,
recovery.
there was. They didn't do a good job at it. I can explain this too. So when the Sega Saturn, and you're correct, it did shit the bed really hard, which is hysterical because they had the best mascot. They stopped advertising.
Yeah.
They just stopped advertising. You know how many people would have been like, you know what, I'll give the Dreamcast a shot, and they would have probably broke even with the Xbox that console
Back
war
then, I
era.
was only aware the Dreamcast even existed because my neighbor had one and he showed it to me.
I had to argue with a friend because he thought it was from the era of the PlayStation One.
Dude, I saw Sonic Adventure. I was like, they make 3D Sonics now on the Dreamcast. I was like, what? This is a thing that exists.
Legitimately, all they had to do was pull a PlayStation One handbook thing and market it, and then release jam packs. That's it. You win. Everybody would play it. It would have been between that, like I think because PlayStation 2 obviously whooped everybody's ass in that war, but it probably it might have been right under GameCube. I think GameCube still would have been number 2. I don't think there's any chance anybody's going to get to number 2 in that one. Those two are pretty strong, but I think Xbox would have been last that generation. They still would have made more consoles because it's Microsoft. They don't give shit. They have money for days. But if they had actively tried to sell their console, it would have sold. But they did not actively try to sell their console because they're idiots. And whoever was in marketing at the time, I actually looked into this because I was interested in the last era lifespan of Sega. It's actually kind of tragic. They not only, after the Sega Saturn failed, butchered the entirety of the team. Like literally 70% of the people got fired.
Sega never sticks with its guns. God damn it.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, like they even though they weren't part of a large company at this point, they were in the process of looking for potential buyers. Like the CEOs were looking for buyers. They weren't looking to sell the console. So as I said, if they tried to sell it, it would have sold, but they didn't want to. They were looking for buyers. They weren't looking to sell. Which is unfortunate because I do think that Sega has a lot to offer to the market, no matter what they do. Even if they make shit sometimes, obviously the Marvel video games, barring Captain America, which was a happy surprise. I think it's a perfect example of, because like it was literally 15 years of prominence, and then they just died.
You were talking about the Sony getting created because they already stuff, but you do know one of the major reasons why Sony got created, and that was because Nintendo shit the bed with the Philips CDI. Remember that story?
It did. Yeah, I remember that story. The big thing.
Sony literally came up and was like, "Yo, you want to do a partnership? We could have had the Nintendo PlayStation, but nope."
Well, it wouldn't have been no. They actually had a name for it. It would have been the CD64, I believe. It would have gone on the Nintendo 64 because they were saying, we'll put it on the SNES. I'm like, there's no way you're finishing that in that generation. Fuck you. No. no way you're finishing that next generation. So it would have gone on the 64, and we actually have tech demos of expanded versions of Ocarina of Time from that.
Yeah.
Which a little bit of interesting gaming history, because they did have demo machines for these that like exist. These exist. There's a lot of cool things like that exist. Like, did you know that there is a kind of radio-esque based Genesis cartridge thing that allows you to download people's games?
Oh yeah.
And Nintendo had one for the SNES as well.
Oh yeah.
And you could play technically a Zelda game with a random schmuck kid.
Oh yeah, it was like it was radio broadcast, wasn't it?
Yeah, radio broadcast. Yep. And it picked up the frequency and it picked up the game. And I think that's the start. Like not of true online gaming, but obviously the whole concept of sharing content for games.
It's where the idea began.
Yep. It's the same thing like with the Doom being given to the players to make multiplayer mod to the game and make it so that it's able to be played by people across the state. Which
I mean, there was those at the. I do think at that point a bunch of LAN parties were also getting big too. So.
Yes, they were. And there's a reason why Doom just because it caused creativity.
Did you know pretty much every multiplayer GameCube game has LAN capabilities with it? You can hook all those GameCubes together and play a whole bunch of weird games. You could play Mario Kart Double Dash with 12 players. You know that?
I do know that. That's actually really cool and also really unwieldy.
I know. People can't even get 4 swords going.
I mean, yeah.
Let alone a 12-player Mario Kart with 4 GameCubes.
I mean, you can always hope for 4 GameCube worth of players. But I think one of the big things is...
Wait, it was 16 because it was... No, it was 16 players because it was 8 racers, but it was Double Dash, so you double that, so that's 16. Yeah, you could get 16 people. God damn. Fucking hell.
I do think a big thing is Atari's one of the biggest games.
I'm sorry, just one last aside. I really want to know if anyone has ever actually done that. I'm pretty sure someone somewhere has actually done that. I want to know. Like, for sure.
I'm sure they have. I believe they have.
Yeah, but I want to at least hear it. I gotta hear it.
You gotta hear it?
Yeah.
You need to know.
Yeah, I need to know the story.
A big thing for me comes from the fact that, like, obviously Nintendo shit the bed, but when you're the Dawn of the City, sometimes when you let, like, other crime bots into power, it doesn't matter what they do. Nintendo could literally just let Xbox and PlayStation make innovation after innovation, and they don't need to care because their nest egg is so big.
Well, Nintendo's...
Like, they don't have the most... They own a part of Pokemon.
I think that habit has kind of bled into even nowadays, where Nintendo's just kind of doing whatever the hell it wants. Every Nintendo innovation is its own innovation, and they don't care what other people do. Other people can innovate all they want, they're going to ignore that.
They also don't care what they think. I mean, if anything shows you that, it's the fact that they don't give a shit about the graphical fidelity of their game system.
Or the online capabilities of their games.
Oh, relatively. Some of them are actually pretty good, which is really weird.
But I feel like that's more to the individual devs' credit than the Nintendo credit. There are some horror stories.
What I was going to say is, like, Smash Brothers online, like, server is, weirdly enough, not the same as Mario Kart's online server. And Mario Kart famously has a very good online connectivity system.
And Smash Bros. Does not.
So, like, that's what I mean. It's, like, weird. It's not normal for them to have servers that have different, like...
Well, that's why I was saying I really think it's down to the individual devs, man.
I mean, it could be. But, like, those are both Nintendo as... So, like, is it?
Is it? Well, I don't think it was the same people who made Smash Bros. Were the exact same people who made Mario Kart. Different teams and all that. That's why I say individual devs and not developers. I mean,
know
like the
how
individual
laboratory.
people working on it. I mean,
No, I know what you mean. Like if you can give me the team names, kind of like how they do it in
oh my
like
god, off the top of my head,
Capcom.
hell no, I ain't got that name on me.
I mean,
God.
because that's the big thing I would need is a
Listen, I know
name like in
Sakurai didn't
Capcom.
work on Mario Kart 8, is what I know.
Oh, so you're telling me Sakurai isn't good at developing online capabilities?
Probably.
Yeah, you're probably right. He only makes Kirby games after all. Not to
I
give shit
don't
to
know.
Kirby, but Kirby is not built for adults. Not to shit on Kirby, but his games are made for children. Like,
Well,
they're
don't
super
forget, there was a long period where Sakurai actually left Nintendo and started working on games outside of Nintendo for a while. So,
It's true.
who
That is
knows?
true. That is
Who
true.
knows what
I
that
guess
man is capable of? Did you know he tests characters out by playing 2 controllers by himself?
Yeah, I saw that. That was
Fucking
fucking
insane.
insane.
I don't know
Like,
what that man's capable of. He does things that are completely alien to me.
his 2 wives, I can tell by how he plays his video game. But yeah, no, I think Nintendo probably, like, as of now, I don't think they'll ever be doing anything. I think the only time they actually got close to worrying about something was when the Wii U was out. But even then, they're like, we'll just make something else and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because you know what they still own? They still own Mario.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what else they still own? They still own Pokemon. They still
Well,
own
kind of own the
fucking Zelda.
Pokemon. We've had this discussion.
Yeah, they're a majority holder, remember?
Yeah, a third of it.
Yeah.
Nintendo
Well,
owns
I
a
actually
third,
don't
Creatures
know.
Inc. owns the other third, and Game Freak owns the other third. Not Game Freak. I don't know. I can't remember the names. It's getting late. My brain's starting to turn to jelly. It's a triple steak.
I mean, peek at it real quick again. Company.
Was it just the Pokemon Company? Was that the third one? I don't remember.
Pokemon Company is the one that would be on.
So it's Pokemon Company, Creatures Inc., and Nintendo. I think it is.
Yeah, they're not giving numericals. Game Freak.
I think it's like an even 33% each. Nintendo Game Nintendo Game Freak Creatures Inc. Okay, I was right the first time. God, why do I doubt myself? Why do I doubt myself, man? Pokemon
Game Freak is in. Game Freak is based out of a building owned by Nintendo, so they basically are owned by Nintendo.
I mean, basically, but not completely.
Like they're in a building
like
that Nintendo is in.
They're like that They're like that adventurer who got ate by the ooze but hasn't been absorbed yet.
All right, what about Creature? Yep. Okay. Yep. They're all just Nintendo IPs because they all are based out of Nintendo's buildings.
But not quite.
So yeah, no, Nintendo. Yeah, no, they're all based out of Nintendo's buildings. I know because they're called Nintendo. So yeah, no, they're like owned without being owned. They're indie devs on record. Fucking yeah, Nintendo owns Pokemon. Shut up.
I don't know. From the stories I hear from development, Nintendo keeps trying to like tell Pokemon to make the games better, but they're just doing their own thing because Nintendo doesn't actually have any control over it.
Jesse, Pokemon is owned by the landlord.
By the landlord. Yeah, my landlord owns me too, Joey. My landlord owns me too, Joey.
Yeah, Pokemon's owned by the landlord. That is the most horrifying discovery I've made all day. That is. I wish I didn't know that. I wanted to know that it was true so bad, but at what cost? Man, that's awful. Yeah, no. So Nintendo basically owns Pokemon. If they wanted to, they could buy both.
I mean,
because their holdings.
I know for a while. I think they got bought out like a couple years ago, but for the longest time, like Monolith Soft was like making Xenoblade Chronicles games, and it's like, no, they're still technically third party, man. They don't own by
Like,
Nintendo. It's like,
are they in the same building as
no.
Nintendo? Are they based at? Okay, then different. It's a different dynamic. Like if the company that you work for primarily owns the building out of, what are you gonna do? I'm
Go
gonna
find
make
a different
PlayStation
building
game
if you want to.
I mean, yes, but like
If
good
Nintendo
luck
gets
taking
uppity, they
Pokemon
could
with
just
them.
walk up and leave. There's nothing stopping them.
Good fucking luck. Nintendo will buy them out. That's why they're in the building, because if they have to move out of the building, it costs money. And then Nintendo will just be like, well, guess I'll
Oh,
just buy
I'm
Pokemon.
sorry. They own Pokemon. You think they're gonna run out of fucking money?
They own a part of Pokemon, but they're also based in Nintendo's building.
I'm sorry.
I
Even
think
a
it's going to be
third
a
of
challenge.
Pokemon is too expensive for anyone to buy out.
I think it's, except for Nintendo, who owns Pokemon and Mario, the top two series. So yes, Nintendo will buy them if they want them.
I'm just saying.
And you want to know what's really crazy? The EPA probably won't give a shit because it's just Pokemon. And they already only work with Nintendo. So, like, what are they going to complain about? Well, they'll keep working with Nintendo.
Listen, I'm just waiting for the Civil War to destroy Pokemon.
That's the expectation going forward. The Confederacy is something I want to see in the Pokemon. How do they tackle slavery? What happened to Brock, that poor man? First off, he shouldn't be a slave. Second, stop going after children.
That's not what I meant by a revolution, but whatever.
You said Civil War.
Civil War, sorry. I'm tired.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And that's why I made the point, because you know what? Japan has a bad history with that stuff too.
Ugh.
Yeah. Poor Yasuke. By the way, that's fucked up. Everybody bitching about a black man existing in Japan and being like, well, he's not historically accurate. And I'm like, I fucking hear you when Neo came out and you fought the guy.
Are you kidding me? They were complaining about Lara Croft's new look again.
Because she's not boobies enough, man. Don't
Trust
you know?
Me, it's literally it's been every game, Joey. Every fucking game.
Right. But like, it's in this.
You've just gotta ignore them, Joey. Don't feed the troll. Don't feed the trolls. Let them starve.
Can't, dude. They're fucking. they're outrage grifters. I need to.
I know, and you're letting them grift. You're feeding them. You're making them stronger, Joey. Look me in the eye. What am I? I'm a fucking troll. I know this. I'm a fucking troll. Do you think I don't know the fucking grift? You think I haven't? I have been born in the grift. I've been molded by the grift. I know exactly what's going on. Do not engage with them, Joey.
Do you remember that scene in Talladega Nights? Ricky Bobby's dad's like, "Why'd you do the race?" I didn't do it for you. That's what I like to hear. But yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things where, fun fact about the Samurai Warriors, they made Yasuke playable because, historically speaking, Yasuke was one of Oda Nobunaga's greatest retainers.
I'm surprised it took them that long.
Oh, they also didn't complain when the white guy was playable in Neo. That was hysterical. Nobody batted a fucking eye.
Oh, but he's based on a real white guy who went to Japan. Yeah, he was there for like a year and learned some basic tricks. Oh boy.
Well, no. He lived there for a good while.
Oh, did he?
Actually,
I'm probably thinking something else.
He was under the Tokugawa shogunate, so he was after Nobunaga. So like him encountering Yasuke, the way he did was actually really cool in the story, because it wasn't for the same reason.
So yeah, it's cool when the white guy does it, but not when the black guy does it.
Yeah, no, how dare they make Yasuke playable and oh wait, nobody said anything about that one. What but
nobody cares about Samurai Warriors like Assassin's Creed, so you know.
That's true. People bitch about them being historically accurate still, and I'm like, have you just, like, are you never going to give up? Dude, I played as Jack the Ripper in one of the games. Fuck off. Also, bad decision on their part to make him play it.
Dude, I can't wait till the plot twist at the end of Metroid Prime 4 is that Samus takes off the armor. It's a black chick, and the actual Samus went somewhere else.
I kind of really want a chocolate to be Samus.
Well, I
I
mean,
would
we
love
did
that.
have that. That was Dark Samus, but we ate her, so.
Well, first off, she was blue, and that was hysterical. Like I don't.
Oh,
think,
she was
like,
blueberry flavored. Gotcha.
Yeah, that no, like that becomes all racist coded if we're not careful.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would paint the shoe polish like and blue on their faces back in the day, and I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
no, don't say that, Jesse. Jesse, no.
Okay, well, I didn't know that one.
I know. I'm informing you so future jokes can be saved.
So, okay.
But no.
Blackface is not okay, and blueface is not okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, purple is another one.
Is any colored face okay?
Well, they're usually like around that area because it's all about
you can't
like
do
what they
yellow
used.
face, and you can't do red face.
Red, yep.
You can do orange face.
Yep.
Our president was doing it.
Yep, I agree. That one is fair. Fair game. Go ahead.
Yep, just orange face. That's the only one that's allowed.
In fact, if you don't have an orange face by the time we're done with this conversation, I'm going to be upset.
Oh yeah.
And you are a disappointment if you do not have it. You should look just like the greatest president of the United States history, Tangerine Man. If you don't, vitamin C you later because I'm gonna kick your ass. But yeah, no. Getting holy shit, we got off topic there. Finishing up my point, I all the way back to my point. I do think arcades were like a big cultural boom for like.
Wait, Joey, hold on.
World.
One last point.
Yeah. Yep.
If Samus got turned into a man, do you think they would complain?
Yes. Only because they would want the boobs back, not because they had to choose a man.
Not because they want,
They would complain for the dumbest reason.
Yeah, they wouldn't do the valid reason. They do the dumb reason.
Yeah, like the valid reason is you've taken one of the most prolific, interesting, and amazing female video game protagonists and just gender swap.
You want to know what they would bring up that point if it was a black man she got replaced by.
You're probably right. Oh shit.
They would only say that specifically if it was a black man she got replaced with.
I mean, there is one man they would be acceptable, playable, like as a gender swap. It would be Adam.
Isn't he dead like 3 times over?
Yeah, but like it would be in the past, right?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the only way you could do it if he's dead, Jesse. You have to go when he's not dead.
Freaking no. Honestly, with the weird magical sci-fi, they could probably bring him back as a weird cyborg. They brought him back as a computer program. Just download the computer program into a body.
Nerd powers activate. So they did have a comic run for Metroid where Samus actually gained semi like cosmic abilities, but they never brought in Resurrection. So I don't think it's possible even then, unfortunately.
Listen, again, Metroid will pull some sci-fi bullshit out of their ass. Why the Metroid back? I thought they were extinct. Yeah.
To be fair, that one can be just based off of negligence.
Yeah.
To be fair, they might have just not done a good enough job at exterminating.
Well, I mean, like, the pirates are a galactic threat. Did they get all of the Metroids? You sure the pirates didn't just have some stored away somewhere where they can't be found?
I mean, it could just be gene splicing too, which is different.
Heck, the pirates figured it out once. They can figure it out a second time.
I mean, like that's different than resurrecting like someone like Adam, though, because like Metroids, that's literally just reproducing.
Well, they don't have to resurrect them. Like I said, they have the computer AI program. Just put that one in a robo body, and we have Robo Adam.
That's different.
Is it?
Also, yes.
Is it? Because I don't think it is.
I think it is. Also, you have to prove they'd be able to make Adam actual robo body.
They've had robo hunters before, so.
That's true, but they've all gone rogue. So like, let's not do that.
Oh, so Adam could be
Stay
the
good.
villain. Okay, that works. Like, let's go with that.
I mean, great, but like then he can't be playable.
In the multiplayer, can be.
That's not the same. It's not the same. It's not what I'm asking for, Jesse.
Evil campaign, Joey. Do the evil campaign.
I think it would be nice to see a kind of Halo-inspired game because Metroid is already kind of Halo adjacent with Metroid in it, and I think giving him his own little Halo and Metroid would be it, but like a lot more horror based, right? The Flood's scary, but there isn't much else that scares me in Halo. But like, as a Marine in the Metroidverse, everything fucking kills me.
I mean, is that what that Metroid Prime game on the DS was all about?
Metroid Prime Hunters was a little different because they were
Not
all
Hunters, Federation Force.
Federation, but no, that was just about playing basketball, dude. That sucked. that one was what you're thinking is what everyone wanted, not what they got.
Anyways, it's getting late. I have to go to bed, so I think we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
Gotcha. Let me finish up my last point.
No, that's gonna add an extra hour, Joey.
Oh no, you interrupted it.
Fine.
I was just gonna go back to the point of I think the cultural like.
But honestly, I don't think I interrupt that often, Joey. I don't know.
Bullshit. I think it's one of those things where it became a popular sort of consensus. It's like in every movie theater. It's on every street block. It's in all the food joints, like at least in America, but like also in Japan, they have dedicated buildings to these things where arcades are kind of the thing to do from the late 80s to the late 90s. Like,
honestly, that one lasted until pretty recently, actually.
Well, for them to be a thing to do, because like, let's be clear, they died out because people stopped going.
Yeah, but
and they
that was more recent than you're thinking.
I know what you mean to say, but what I mean to say is their popularity peaked for those 10 years, but they never got back to that peak after it. Like in the 2000s, you could get your arcade games as good as the arcade at home, and that was one of the biggest selling points. But there's also the fact of the matter that people were staying home a little bit more. Like the inception of the internet, started to grow.
Yep.
Video games at home became multiplayer online. Yep. Like this is a whole thing that like keeps you at home. Don't go to the arcade. You don't need to socialize out there. You can socialize in here. So I think the arcade boom of like, let's say 87 to 99, give them 12 years. I think that was a big peak for like arcades as a whole, 87 to 99. And I think that was the point I was trying to get across. Outside of all of the grifting and all that good stuff we were talking about. But it's on the episode. This is a good episode so far. We have a lot of good talking points.
Yeah, we even got to dip into blackface a little bit. My favorite topic.
I mean, I knew you would want to talk about that because you have such a history with it.
Oh, yeah.
No. Jesse, you're supposed to say that's not true.
Oh, yeah, no. It's just like, we don't talk about that history except for on the podcast, Anyways, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.